Welcome to this episode of YouTube, where it's been exactly 1 month since our loss of Maya, and we wanted to provide some footage. This was taken through the auditorium window by one of the staff to kind of show the status of what the post-mortality behaviors are. And here you see Aidan and Denali doing some typical sibling wrestling. Some of the behaviors that you'll see are foreleg stabs by Aidan, a squash by Denali, inhibited bites, meaning scruff bites or things that is kind of wrestling behavior, social interaction behavior. And obviously the ice conditions make us pretty nervous. Here's Aidan doing a ride up on Denali and then doing a full mount. That's a dominance behavior. And you see Aidan, again, clearly showing a dominance, but not in an overt fashion by any means. And Denali comes up with a ride up. Denali does have a height advantage over Aidan, and that certainly gives him a few more opportunities. And then Denali does a ride up or a mount, and Aidan just submits without too much question. These are very socially engaging. I've not seen really much dominance between them other than Aidan being a little bit possessive of wolf care staff and guarding, and that's certainly something that you'll see a clip of this a little bit later that we continue to see. Aidan's definitely more needy when it comes to interacting with wolf care staff and really just sticking to them, just staying right with them, and one of the reasons why it's easier to film from the window is that you don't have that influence of wolf care staff in there affecting some of the behavior. Like I say, probably the biggest time we see dominance is really when there's a wolf care staff there to possess, and that's become Aidan's behavioral pattern. So as we said, the winter conditions are still remaining. As a matter of fact, we had a fresh coat of snow since today on Friday, and this has been one of the longest spring melts that we've seen in a long time, and so conditions are icy. The pond is still iced over. It certainly is something that we want to be mindful as these two kind of wrestle around, and you'll see the chase behavior there that we want to be mindful of that. No way to stop it. Certainly wolves are going to be active, and especially young wolves who like to wrestle and assert dominance over each other. And you can see this is all fairly, it seems like like there's one wolf having an advantage over the other. Here's Denali up high on Aidan, but Aidan's got to grab of a scruff bite. And again, those are posturing things that wolves do to show some status. So it's been very mild-mannered, very quiet. Not a lot of tension between these two individuals. Again, this is social behavior. This is nothing different than we saw all through their puppyhood. So we aren't seeing any real sign that one of them is taking over the other. They'll go back and forth here, showing that dominance. One thing we have noticed, they are, again, still interacting over at the gate near Grizzer, but not certainly showing as much of a focus towards Grizzer. But this kind of chase behavior, or earlier where we saw some little bit more dominance and a little bit more growling, does get piques Grizzer's attention. And so otherwise Grizzer's been pretty much ignoring these two, but this kind of chase behavior will get him excited, not in a negative way. He's not tucking his tail, he's not afraid, he's running right along with them. And so that's something that we need to kind of keep an eye on. Grizzer's enclosure is very, very covered, very wooded, and so there's not a lot of opportunity for these open chases like you will see here in the main exhibit, where they've got wide open space and they can run and chase and not run into things. Grizzer's enclosure is very wooded, and so we'll be mindful of that as we look at alternatives for him, increasing his habitat or increasing his enclosure, and make sure that we have some good open areas for him to be able to engage in some chase behavior. Even though he's not chasing with anybody individually in the pen, he is still running along with any activity in either enclosure, and so we want to make sure he has that opportunity. As I said, the ice remains frozen, and that's a little bit slippery for them. You'll see, though, the wolves are using this to cool off, even though today, when this was filmed, it was probably 35 degrees, which doesn't seem warm to human standards, but is certainly warm for wolf standards that have a pretty full coat. Now this clip here is from when wolf care staff is in, and again, I just want to note the difference goes from social engagement without anyone in there to a little bit more guarding, a little bit more possessiveness. Now, if you're kind of watching and trying to record behaviors, I want to point out this is not hackles that we're seeing on Denali or Aidan. That's just a 2-year-old bad hair day. That hair will stand up, especially in this wet, sleety, snowy conditions. Those guard hairs have a tendency not to lay down very well. And even on older animals, we see that where the guard hairs get wet and they appear like they have hackles, but really that's basically just a wet guard hairs. So the snow brings with it, again, new opportunities to sniff things, but as things thaw, that's probably the biggest opportunity, is things coming out of the bottom of a snowbank. And see here Denali finding an old beaver that he's trying to dig out of the snow. So we're, like I said, we're mindful of this competition issue around wolf care staff. Aidan does appear to be the one seeking the most attention and doing the guarding, so it triggers more guarding and dominance behavior from him. And it's not a negative thing, but it certainly is a confidence issue that Aidan has. Aidan's always been the lower ranking pup, and so he's been a little bit more subordinate. So he's getting some confidence from us, and he's gaining some confidence by guarding Denali from us. And so we want to make sure that our presence in the enclosure doesn't alter the social structure between these two individuals. And we do spend enough time that Denali does get his fair share of attention. Again, we have to be mindful. Has Aidan been satiated with attention, and has he moved off before we go on? Grizzer's doing much better this week. We've started to see some play behavior from him. Wolf care staff are obviously a source of play, and as Grizzer's head is getting treated, actually, again, I think I said this last week, daily with what we call wound powder, just a drying powder to help heal that head. And as the staff go in, we go down low and try to get him to submit so that we can treat his head. And as we went down low, he went into a playbow and he chased around and started running around the enclosure. Again, there's the benefit of this enclosure is it's got a lot of cover, but the drawback is when you're running, you got a lot of obstacles. So we'll keep that in mind as we find a new location or build a new area for him. But it is good to see him in a playbow. Good to see him excited. His head is getting better. He did, again, rub up his head against the fence and tear some stitches, and rather than drug him and restitch again, we are trying just some daily applications to try to get that to heal. And it's clean. It's like I said, wolf care staff 7 days a week are treating him, and sometimes multiple times a day, just keeping that wound clean, putting on some powder, and it is really, the hair growth is coming back from the suture site, and it's looking pretty good. And as I said, the other thing is that his attitude is good. He's really, really playful. His preference, though, is to lay down with wolf care staff on the straw in the kennel. That's his preference. I think that's his main social companionship that he'd like to see. In retirement, not too much. The antibiotic worked on Malik. His abscess dried up. But we are not seeing anything new there. And not seeing really much, new going on with these two individuals. Again, they're pretty sedate, pretty set in their ways. There's not too much as far as activity that really gets them too riled. A lot of investigation, certainly with this fresh snow, a lot of opportunity for them to investigate. We are seeing less howling this week than we have in previous weeks. The main howling that we see right now is when wolf care staff leave Grizzer's enclosure, then he lets out a howl. He's definitely gotten used to that one-on-one wolf care interactions. So that's about it for this week's YouTube. Again, everybody's seeming to improve 1 month post the loss of Maya. And we hope that continues, and we'll keep you posted as we get to future plans for how Grizzer is going to manage his life in retirement. Thanks for watching.